Okay.
There you go.
Hi, Ty.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for being here with me today on Conscious Conversations. I know I've got the Transformers written, but I was part of a program. I'm just going to leave that as the background for now. And I am moving throughout this chat. But basically, I'm really excited to have you here to sit down with you and have a conversation with you around your life experience and your passion around trauma coaching. And I guess the story that led you to it. So firstly, welcome and thank you so much for taking the time to create something special, and hopefully the people listening to this will get exactly what is meant for them.
Yeah,
So welcome,
100%.
Ty.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. Well, yeah, so I guess my story started, growing up, I guess I always had this inner urge to want to be the best at whatever I was. And it was like I continued to do different sports and all this growing up, and I never really kind of got there. So when I got to the age of, say, like 14, and this was all, I got to the age of 14, I kind of was led into a path of like darkness, you could say, and ultimately into more of a criminal world. And these were the people and the environment I was kind of hanging around, like full on gangsters and drug dealers and really bad stuff they were doing. So these are the people I was around, and these were the head of their game in their section for that what they were kind of doing. So I
Mm.
was inspired by people around me in my environment who were the best at what they were doing, and that was what I intuitively was seeking within myself. And because I was such a young age, I just kind of thought like, boom, this was a thing. And for me as well, being a criminal as well, was allowing me to feel powerful, feel seen or feel heard, which was such a
Wow.
deep traumatic pattern of mine of the abandonment issues and the fear of being rejected again. So I always started to play up and play certain roles and behaviors so that I could then ultimately be seen and heard and received in a whatever way that was. And it didn't matter if it was good or bad because I was receiving
Mm.
attention, right? Or love.
So let me get this straight. You're a high vibe, high stimuli kind of guy. I just want to go back to one of the videos that I watched of you in an ice bath, and you had well over 40 bags of ice, and you were sitting in this ice bath. And what really blew my mind was your ability to talk as much as you did. I mean, you just kept talking and talking and talking whilst being in this, environment that's highly testing. And what I usually observe is most people are able to sit in the ice bath, but their natural instinct is, how do I conserve my energy and how do I drop into this space, calmly. And with you, it was I've never seen somebody talk and talk and talk and talk as much as you do, and have the energy to do that. So you weren't conserving any energy. Actually, you expending more energy whilst being in this space, which was quite mind-blowing. But I'm thinking to myself, how are you in your body? Like, are you experiencing being in your body when you're dropping into that state, Ty?
Yeah, so that's funny. It's funny you say that because that's exactly what the kind of the inspiration of my business is and what my larger offer is going to be end up being, which is my main inspiration is 0 point, coming into that 0 point space within yourself. And it doesn't mean you're not experiencing pain or suffering, but it's like you're in a space of like adversity, yet you're like fully objective with that adversity. So you're not like fully identified with the experience. You're still experiencing it, like feeling into it. You're feeling the body. You're feeling the pain of it. You're feeling like the retraction of the nervous system wanting to like retract and move away. But in that space, you're able to access this really true objective, powerful point of view where you could observe it all and see it for what it is and allow that adversity to play out. Just as much as we do joy, we allow joy to play out. We don't question it. We don't resist it. We don't allow it. And it's about training yourself to be able to do that in the state of adversity, because that's the only state is that when the nervous system retracts, where it feels like it's going to experience pain or loss, which ultimately is growth, which is actually has its own polarity. And this is like the shadow part of growth as well. It does have that element to it where how it shows up is it shows up like the adversity. Sorry, I've just gone now.
The adversity is there to get you to break through to another level.
Yeah. Ultimately, and what I was like trained with, I'm like, well, hang on, why have I got all this preference over me feeling good or bad all the time. And
Mm.
it made me, and because I had a lot of addictive personality in my past, I'm like, why am I such an addict for feeling good all the time? And
Yes.
why is it? Yeah. So when I
Yeah.
asked this question to myself, I arrived at a space. It's like, wow, well, you know what? I'm going to train myself to really enjoy adversity, because
Mm.
what's the difference? The only difference is my internal belief systems or preference systems based on what I should be receiving in this moment. When life doesn't work like that, because
It's
we go through experience.
multifaceted.
Yeah, and we experience things that we're meant to experience that are going to push us into growth more. So
Oh,
it's
I love that so much. I love
yeah,
just the presence of not being addicted to the joyful love and light, happy, the world is shining bright, and knowing that the human experience is actually embracing all of it, all
yeah,
aspects of being a human, and
yeah,
it's all actually beautiful. And it gets me present to the inquiry around love. What is love? I feel like we have been conditioned to believe that love looks a certain way. When you're experiencing love, this is how it plays out. However, it is so diverse and so multifaceted. And when you actually drop into that space and experience it, you understand that love isn't just about the joy, the peace. It's all of it, Ty. It's the
yeah,
tears, it's the
yeah,
challenges, it's the you wouldn't know one without the other. And the depths that
exactly.
we're able to experience love and contribute to others will be equivalent to the experience that we've had of suffering. I often
Mm,
find that the best healers in the universe have the most incredible stories and have overcome the most incredible challenges. And they're the human beings that then are able to contribute on, in this most miraculous way to other people.
yeah, so true. And that's what we signed up for. We're coming down here and to experience polarity, right? So I always look at this like this, like if I'm up in the higher planes, of consciousness, and I'm just rolling around like a soul, I'm just like, I always say it's like Teletubby land, just rolling around, everything's happy, everyone's always just cheering each other on, there's all this support.
Oh,
There's like,
yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's like, I'm up there, I'm like, I've been up here for like a million years now. I'm bored shitless. I'm just gonna, you know what? I'm going to sign up. I'm going to sign up for a human experience, because it's going to give me that diversity, that polarity, that
Oh, I
variance
love
that I'm
it.
seeking, So I
Yeah.
always look at it like that. I'm like, so, I meet a lot of people who are like, spiritual community, especially like, oh, like, oh, I'm just sick of it here. I just want to go home and all that. It's like, love, you signed up for this, mate. You really did sign up for this. It's about enjoying this whole experience. And this is why I feel like, when we can train ourselves in adverse experiences, like going to the gym, pushing the growth in the gym for muscle growth, or like I say, I love ice bars because it really grounds me, and I'm like constantly real flighty. So when I'm in the ice bath, it allows me to really feel me being in the human experience a lot more.
It's
And it
amazing
trains.
how good is the high after it though? Like, when you
Oh,
get to that point where your body adapts and it does what the body
yeah,
does and it drops into that space. But when you get out of it, it's the biggest high ever. And
yeah,
it's just like a charge point. It's almost like you are supercharged. Your brain is so coherent, so sharp.
yeah. Yeah, it's literally a dopamine hack. Like science has had studies now where sex, alcohol, drugs is like raises dopamine like
Yes.
200%,
Yeah.
with a slow decline after 3 seconds. Whereas if you get in an ice bath and you can punch that out at 0 to 5 degrees for 5 to 10 minutes, a
Oh,
sesh,
so
you
worth
you,
it.
you hack the system. It raises dopamine 250% with a slow decline over 8 hours. It's literally what we're seeking is in this world as well. It's everything's dopamine. The whole world is just like triggering us to be addicted to something, whatever that is, however that is, drugs, alcohol, tech,
Yes.
gaming, whatever.
Yes, and that's due
Mm,
to the fact that we're not able to find it within ourselves. So once we find that space of what we're seeking externally, that high, that love, that challenge, whatever it is, once you actually embody that space, you're no longer at the effect, or you're not a slave to
yeah,
the outside world. And
yeah,
what I'm really getting out of this conversation at the moment, Ty, I am getting that, any resistance to anything that's showing up in your world. So the resistance that you have is what's creating the suffering. Okay. And so the
Yeah.
resistance, I often look at that and go, what am I resisting here? Because there's a breakthrough that's about to happen when I'm in resistance. And it's
Yeah.
only when I'm in resistance mode that the suffering's present. When there's no resistance, there's no suffering, there's just what's showing up in the world. And you get to interact and create it however you want to. So that's amazing. But can I just say what's come up for me right now is that movie, The Departed. You know, that movie with the Scottish Irish gangsters? It's got Mark
Yeah.
Wahlberg, it's got Leonardo
Yeah.
DiCaprio and Jack Nicholson. It's a
Yeah.
stellar movie. And do you know
Yeah.
the part in the movie? You remind me of this movie so much. There's a part in the movie where there's a man, he's a gangster. He says, "Tell Mum I'm not coming home for supper." And it's
Yeah.
actually Ty, it's code for I'm going to prison, right? Now I'm dying for you to say that line. Please just say that line. But do it in the Irish or the Scottish accent, please.
Wait, what's the line again? Say the line again.
Tell Mum I'm not coming home for supper.
Tell Mum I'm not coming home for supper.
So much. I needed that today. That was
I haven't seen that movie in such a long time.
Well,
It's such a good movie. Yeah, I love that movie. Yeah, I've actually watched that a few times. I totally forgot about that line, but yeah, it's such a good line.
I love that movie too. It's, anyhow, apart from that movie, thanks for sharing your story and your love for having people get breakthroughs. I know that you're really big on breath work. Can you talk to me about, your love for breath work? I know you do it daily and what you get out of it. And if there's a technique that you have that you can share with people that's something that they can keep in their back pocket to implement in their daily lives, Ty.
Yeah. So the breath is the most powerful tool. It's the most supportive tool that literally generates our life, keeps us alive and keeps us going. And it's one of the most unconscious aspects of the self that we just don't really give enough attention to. So what I've been doing for the last few years is practicing to really connect with that breath and to give love to it and thank it for its service, for keeping me alive up until this point and serving me, and literally doing all the work to make sure all my organs are flowing and doing well, and yeah, just to preserve life, like literally, and it's literally that your breath is your life force. And when you can learn to tap right into your breath and allow that to access the sympathetic nervous system, you can access these memory banks of stored trauma that are kind of usually imprinted biologically into the cellular structure of the body. And we do this, and it's all for preservation of life. Like the mind stores memory, the emotions will store emotional cues based on those memories as well. And then ultimately what happens is then we start to imprint this in the cellular structure. What we can do with the breath is then access through the sympathetic nervous system parts of these memories and process deeply these trapped emotions and memories and allow them to make room. So, a lot of my work is, I love doing mindset and subconscious work too, but sometimes it gets deeper than having to deal with just the subconscious, and we have to go deeper into more of the emotional cues and then ultimately into the tissue, get to the tissue, and we can start to process deep trauma experiences.
That's
and it's
Ty. So it's when I understand how the subconscious mind works, and when we access the trauma that is stored in our deep tissues through the breath, is it a matter of then actually having that emotion get processed? So, at whatever stage in life, it's a trapped, emotion that hasn't been processed. So once you process it, it leaves your body, and therefore it doesn't, it's sort of out of your soul, really, isn't it?
Yeah. And this is the integration. This is what it is. These are these parts of ourselves at the time in our life when we experience these events. We didn't have the right strategy to process the emotions. We didn't have the right environment around us or the right people that could support us through that space. So we suppress these parts of ourselves and these emotions so that we can, maybe address it at some other point, or just so we can fit in, so we don't feel rejected or abandoned yet again. This is like the similar deep narrative that's on a collective way. In a collective way is literally everyone's narrative at play. Like at some point in all of our journeys, we experienced abandonment or rejection in some form. or didn't receive love or feel
Yes.
seen or heard or, you know,
Yes.
in that
Yes.
moment. So
Yes.
yeah, what we do is we imprint this trauma in our body so that we can predict in the environment the next time we're going to experience pain or suffering, so that the body and the mind can preserve you. So because all it wants to do is keep you safe. That's all it does.
That's
But when
the
it comes to
job.
growth,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
but when it comes to growth and change, it's we require that opposite polarity. We have to lean in. We have to, you know,
Where it's
and this is what,
uncomfortable. Yeah.
yeah, and this is what the coaching community and all these different modalities and healing is creating those spaces so that people can go and process those parts of themselves that they never really got to fully process. And what we do is you create space, you create all this more room, so then you can have actually start to attract in and manifest higher aspects of the self, higher timelines, more
More
expressive, more,
abundance, more
yeah, more
prosperity,
everything.
more everything that's in line with your soul's truest desires.
Exactly. But we've got
There's
to
no
get beyond
blockages in your soul anymore. You're releasing them all. Do you know what it reminds me of, Ty, this conversation? Have you watched the movie The Matrix? And there's a part, there's a part in the movie where there's a spoon. And I never really got this part until I did all the work, and then it dropped in for me. However, there's a spoon and the spoon starts to bend. Okay. And so you've got, this man is watching his spoon and it's bending. And, you know, he says, it's not the spoon that bends. Do you get it?
Yeah.
It's not the spoon that bends. It's actually the experiencer that's transformed. So as you transform and you let go of, you know, all these unprocessed emotions, these these limiting beliefs, what happens is your reality on the outside shifts. It completely shifts. It's like that spoon. It starts to bend, but it's not the spoon that's bending. It's actually the experiencer that's bending.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly. And it's
pretty
just
phenomenal, isn't it? This whole healing process. And I love what you're pointing to here is that real healing happens with other people. You know, in these space, some of my biggest transformations have happened on my own, but the most potent transformations I've had has always been in group settings. You know, people are mirroring back to me, or they're revealing my blind spots through their sharing, and, you know, it's allowing me to access parts of myself I wouldn't necessarily otherwise be able to access. And don't get me wrong, there's times where you're healing on your own and you're feeling what you're feeling, you're letting go, and you've got meditation and many other strategies. But the most potent type of healing does come with people that hold this incredibly powerful space. And you always attract the people that you need at the time that you need them. Ty.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah, and like you said, The Matrix is a great documentary. I call it more of it's a documentary on life.
Did you?
Yeah, it's more of a documentary on being able to bend reality, and starting to do that, you bend reality from continuing doing deep dive into the inner game within yourself. Yeah,
so we are the matrix. Our actual body are the matrix. And once we hack into that and we heal and we transform that space and the subconscious mind, then our outer reality will shift. And so I actually starting to see this whole spiritual realm all as just metaphors, an analogy for us actually healing and having a completely different experience. Like people are like, oh, the 12th dimension, the 5th dimension, the 10th dimension, but it's actually just your reality as you become clearer and cleaner. And, you know, you tap into what your soul's purpose and desires are, Ty.
Yeah, and that's just beyond all of those meta programs, emotional cues, traumatic experiences, those belief patterns, habits, everything, our actions, what we choose to do. And that is the power we all have, that we can shift our world. And a lot of people don't think they can because they're so completely identified with the external world, and they don't understand that their actual true nature is fully multidimensional in nature, and they're able to tap into so many other dimensions of self and timelines and able to do that. They just need to figure out what blueprint they align with the most, and then they can tap into that. And that specific blueprint will have a set of actions, habits, thoughts, behaviors, how you turn up, how you show up, how I lean into adversity, how I do certain things. All these blueprints will be so specific to that specific timeline. You know, it's like a sportsman. If they want to be a professional basketball player, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to train like 5 to 6 times a day. They're going to show up for themselves. They're going to think they're amazing at the sport. Like people just don't get to those positions and experience those timelines without fully connecting with the specific blueprint for that timeline. And that's what powerful timeline techniques do, and like the breath work and integrated and all of these different styles and modalities help people arrive at that and get beyond the meta programs that they've installed from their, you know, their full identification from the experience prior to that. Once you start to go into the inner game, you go, fuck, I can really shift and create quantum shifts.
Yeah.
And I literally did this 2 weeks ago, and it felt like I just had a quantum leap in
I've seen it
timelines.
in you, Ty. I've seen it
Yeah.
in you. Your sharing
Crazy.
lately has been really epic, and it's
Yeah.
drawing me in, and I'm like, wow, this man is actually speaking from the depths of his heart and soul. And, you know, as a human being, when somebody has that access, you can hear it, the part of your soul and heart it lands on, and you're like, I can hear that, and it draws you right in, you know. Really exciting. Hey, Ty, how exciting is it to be a human being? It is incredibly, it's a miraculous gift. And this, you know, it's almost like life is a game. And once you really start to experience the truth of it, it's exciting, and you end up falling in love with all aspects of it.
Yeah, and this is what we're working at, like where we're moving in consciousness now, as we move into a more of a you know, fifth dimensional reality, which is more, you know, multiple timelines, multiple
Really?
multiple
I always thought we were in the
potentials.
12th dimension here, Ty. And
I mean, no,
you're an
I think,
Aquarius, I'm an Aquarius. It's the age of Aquarius.
yeah. So I feel like what, you know, from what I've learned and what I think I'm experiencing is like, it's like, and Bashar's like a dude who, a channeler, and channeler was sharing a great point, how, you know, just because we can see suffering in the world does not mean that we're living in the same dimensional reality. Or like, you know, pretty much like there's glass walls, like there's glass walls up, and these experiences that we observe or are offering doesn't mean we're generally living in that same dimension or space, like meaning we're not going to attract those experiences, but more so that they're there for our observation, to keep us in check, as a polarity check-in, ultimately, like to show us variants of maybe where we've come from, or maybe where we don't want to move in consciousness. And more people are waking up and deciding what timeline or life or how they want to perceive Earth to be. And that's I look at dimensions like that. And I feel like, you know, obviously the universe is at a point now, or Earth is at a point where it's moving in polarity, and it's up leveling itself. And because I see Gaia as its own entity, its own consciousness. It's the most intelligent. It's very intelligent. It can breathe both polarity. It can breathe space, oxygen, or, you know, chemical atmosphere of space, and it can also generate oxygen on Earth. And it's super highly intelligent. So I treat it like it's an entity, and it's in its own evolution, and we're just its children playing along with that, raising in our own consciousness. And we're going to be forced to face the shadow. We're going to be forced to choose to pick higher standards for ourselves. We're going to be forced to make better choices for ourselves, or we're going to make choices that are going to lead us back into directions that we don't want to do. And we have that opportunity right now. Right now, it's like an acceleration point where we can choose
powerfully. And also, Ty, I feel like where we focus and shift and direct our energy is also essential. And I mean, we know that there's a lot of stuff in the world that's happening that's not in line with humanity's power. However, if we're constantly feeding that, constantly feeding it, and there's no actual shifts or transformation, the shift and transformation happens when we take action. What are you going to do about it is the question, you know. You can sit there on Facebook and write about it and cry about it, and that doesn't actually shift or transform that particular experience. What does is the action that we take. So you know, we've got to get, and I think there's an addiction with you know, feeding certain types of energies to certain experiences. You know, we're addicted to it. It's like there's a chemical release there, and we keep doing it, and it's like there's no shift there without you taking action. So I always like to say, well, I get it, it's challenging, and what are you going to do about it? That's the
exactly.
that I have, you know.
100%.
But look, I really, really love this conversation, Ty. It's been incredible to connect with you. And, you know, I love what you're doing in the space of trauma and coaching, and it's a really inspired space. So the name of your coaching is Zero State Coaching. Is that right?
Zero State Life Coaching, Zero State Life Coaching,
back to just being at the zero state, and then being able to create whatever it is that they want to create from that space, and not, you know, not been stuck in trauma or the past life experiences, etc. So
Yeah,
this is a really exciting space to be in, and thanks so
is.
much for sharing your world and your life.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been good.
Yeah,
It's awesome. It's been great reflection. Thank you.
amazing. Thank you, Ty.